Today we're going to be reviewing Universal Studios Hollywood Halloween Horror Nights R.I.P. tour.
Yeah, so we're going to go over the cost, what's included, and some things to expect, and actually our opinions on everything we saw, and we'll let you know what we exactly think of it at the end.
And then we're going to tell you about our favorite mazes and rank them.
So there'll be information for people who are doing the R.I.P. tour and people who are just trying to go to the Halloween Horror Nights. So I'm Brad.
I'm Kim.
And we're 626 Ohana, California.
The first thing to know about is the cost. Depending on what day you want to go, it ranges anywhere from $409 to $509 per night.
Woo. And of course, that depends if it's a Sunday, Saturday, Thursday, all those days. We will let you know if we think it's worth it at the end. But let's go on to what the first thing that's included.
So that's valet parking. So you go up, you drop off your car, they give you a valet ticket, and when you check in, it's really important that you get that validated, because at the end of the night, that VIP reception desk is closed.
Yeah. So they'll actually, when you walk up to the VIP check-in, which is the RIP check-in, but it just says VIP, right? They will ask you at pretty much at that point, can we stamp that ticket? So to make sure you do that, don't forget, because sometimes people do forget. We've done it once by accident, so something to be aware of. So after you walk through the doors, what do you expect next? Well, you get in, you get your accreditations, you get your wristband and your VIP lanyard, which is going to be really important for you because you're going to be using that all night.
Now, it depends what time you arrive. If your tour's starting, you'll probably go upstairs, stay in the air conditioning, get a bottle of water, just sit down and relax before your fun-filled evening begins.
Or if you're like us this year, we're running to the last second and made it with our tour group just going downstairs, and we joined them right there.
Okay, but that was like a last-minute, personal problem that popped up. So we never cut it that close, and I really don't recommend. But the tip we have for that is we did call ahead, got a hold of the VIP daytime line and let them know we were running late, so they were aware.
Yeah, and really it was a thing that we do not like to do. We always recommend, especially when you get there, it could be really, really busy at the beginning, and those crowds could be really hard to navigate.
If you have a later tour, you might want to go and do your shopping ahead of time at the Universal store that's across the way, or you might want to go on a ride or two, or maybe start the houses a little bit early. Yeah. I wouldn't want to just sit around if I had like an 8 o'clock tour. I'd want to go get some of the things done and then go on the tour.
Pro tip, there is a couple of stores in City Walk that have all for the most part, of the merchandise. Or in the park, there is actually a lot of areas throughout the park that have it. The reason this is a pro tip is do not wait till the end of the night to do this, because those stores are crazy at closing.
But we also realize, they do sell that stuff during the day. So if you're going on a park day, like the afternoon or a different day, and you're going later, you can do that shopping ahead of time.
Yep. Let's go with what we did once we joined our group because they were walking out the door. Well, of course, we went to have dinner at the Moulin Rouge.
So that's the RIP dinner venue. It's a buffet style. And really, I will say this year, it's the best food we've ever had on the RIP tour.
Yeah, it was really good this year, and we were kind of wondering why, so of course we asked.
So they actually now have a Michelin-rated chef that is ahead of the VIP RIP dining, and it's really made a difference. The quality of food's better. They actually offered shrimp cocktail and some little crab claws. And
yeah, it was funny because the crab claws were covered up a little bit by the shrimp. You really had to look for those crab claws, but they were there.
Anyways, so that was amazing, and they had a beef carving station, and
really seasoned well too. By the way, that was one of the best seasoned beefs I've had from a buffet, I think, for a long time.
Later that night, they switched the buffet dinner over to more of just the desserts, and they brought up more desserts, and actually this year the dessert quality improved.
Yeah, and you're not grabbing your own cookies this year. Somebody actually is giving you the cookies off the hot plate so they don't have everybody touching it. So I approve of that. So for dinner, they did give us an hour to go ahead and eat and be able to go through everything and relax and get some waters and stuff. This is another tip for you if you're in there, is to grab a couple of waters and throw them in your backpack as you go, because when we were going, I hate to say it, it was 107 degrees out.
It was stifling hot, so we were glad we always had water with us.
Yeah.
The weather for Halloween Horror Nights the last few years has been anything from cold and rainy to sweltering hot. But when we went, obviously, I think it's the hottest time we've ever been.
Yeah.
And we actually carried portable fans with us, and we had cooling towels. those really came into play and were a lifesaver last night.
We've really seen every weather type for the most part that Southern California can have during this, from rain to cold to extreme heat. So another tip is make sure to check out the days you're going and dress for that weather, because you're going to, just like last night, our low was, I think, at 87 degrees.
Yeah, and that, honestly, I don't think I've ever drank so much water in a theme park as I did last night.
So let's talk about another thing that they do have at the R.I.P. lounge area, and of course that is a bar.
So at the bar, they have specialty cocktails you can only find there. This year, they had a $50 cocktail. We're going to show you the picture. It had Don Julio Alma Miel, salted caramel liqueur, lime juice, honey, margarita mix, apple cider, and it was topped with a black Hawaiian sea salt and a caramel apple. That's insane.
Yeah, I mean, you can see it's insane. It's $50. They did sell one, we were told.
And it does include the mug, so it's
Yep.
a souvenir.
So I'll go show a picture of what Kim took of it. It was a skull. You couldn't really see in the video if it looked like a skull, but yeah, it was kind of cool.
But anyways, for $50, at least you get to keep the mug.
And of course, we'll get more bars on the way.
So then we kicked off our evening, at least the spooky part of our evening.
Yeah. And unfortunately, this is the down part of having a 5:10 time for a tour, is that it is very light out for this time of year to be doing this. So, yeah. But
It's something to take into consideration.
Yeah.
But with the 5:10 tour, we also, at the end of the night, had time to go back and do the houses a second time.
Yep.
So that's kind of a personal preference.
Yep. So we walked down, go down to the tram area, and got onto the VIP, or I guess R.I.P. trolleys.
We went to lots with a few houses first. The first thing we went to was Ghostbusters Frozen Empire. It was still light out, and it was the very beginning of the evening. I'm going to admit, the first time we walked through there, it was okay.
That's the thing with these houses a lot of times, is that they can change in between times because of, the scare actors coming on and off a break. So it's something to be aware of. They could be better or worse. Far as Ghostbusters it was a lot better at night because of the signage outside and everything. You could see Slimer and everything else. Was kind of cool.
And I think, honestly, it just depends on your timing when you're walking through. Are you getting the scares, actors jumping out, or did you just miss the setup? So we definitely had a much better experience the second time there. One thing I'll tell you about Ghostbusters Frozen Empire, I really liked when they were doing like the proton packs.
Yeah.
Did I say that right?
Yeah.
They had the actors and things lit up, and it was kind of cool. The special effects was fun.
Yeah, and if you're thinking this is like the one in past years, if you went to saw the Ghostbusters, was 3 or 4 years ago or so? I can't really remember what year it was. This one is actually a little bit more scary. I was actually pretty impressed of how they made it a little bit more spooky and still a little fun.
Yeah, I thought this was gonna be more like the fun satire, like kind of more of the sleeper house. I mean, to a certain degree it was, but it was more entertaining than I expected. So I give it a little bit more props that it was better than what I expected.
Okay, let's go to the next house that's on that mid-lot, which is Insidious, the further.
Okay, this is one of those films I feel like you really need to see the movie before you went through it to totally get it. But we didn't see all the films, like the last few, so I think we missed part of it.
There's a section in there, and we didn't understand why it was in there, but we learned that it was, again, we went through this one twice too. It's the second time we actually held our breath because it smelled like vomit, and you could see the pictures. I'm glad there's not smell-o-vision because it was bad.
I was dry gagging, and I was going through, and
yeah, we
it was
were actually explained by somebody else who saw all the movies afterwards that said, yeah, no, that's actually a big part of one of the movies. We didn't know. But yeah, this is one of those ones that you don't see the movie, you kind of get lost in what it is.
Exactly.
And I think it makes it more spooky when you've seen the movies.
Either way, it was a really scary house. It did the smelling vomit, and I mean, it was not like a light sense. I mean, it was overwhelming, and and it lingered. I feel bad for all the team members that were working in that section. They had to have a long night. Those team members had to have a long night that worked in that section, like directing people. Yeah, my sympathy goes out to you if they worked that section.
Okay, let's go to our next thing. So we ended up getting back on the trolleys, and we drove over And we got it's like the normal terror tram kind of intro they do, but of course we're doing it on the terror trolleys. Could we call it?
I'd just say the R.I.P. trolleys.
But
Actually, I felt like this year, for the R.I.P. at least, we didn't do the general tram. But I feel like there wasn't much video or much intro like they've done in past years.
yeah, I agree with that. It was a little bit different. So we ended up doing the terror tram, and that is kind of a different terror tram this year, and it was called Inter Bloomhouse. So this is obviously a whole bunch of the Bloomhouse films, which is Megan, The Black Phone,
Freaky, The Purge, and Happy Death Day. So we've seen about half of them. You know, the thing about this, I will have to say, is this was like chopped up. There was no really flow to it. I understand they were trying to do the theme of the Bloomhouse, and Universal Studios seems to have a huge love affair with the Bloomhouse movies during Halloween Horror Nights.
Yeah.
Not necessarily, I like some of them, but it kind of felt like it'd been done over again. It wasn't fresh. It wasn't a new idea per se.
I did like the entrance when we first went in, and they had them all there. That was kind of cool. But after that, it kind of fell apart because, like Kim was saying, it was really choppy.
Well, so when you get off the terror tram, you go into this area. They had Megan. They had people from The Purge, the Happy Death Day, and things like that to do kind of like that opening scare where everybody rushes you. Mm-hmm. And so that was really good.
But we over by the Psycho House, you did that as kind of normal, and I do admit I liked how they designed it this year a little bit better. Mm-hmm. But it was like, okay, you did that, and then all of a sudden you had Psycho. And I love Psycho. I love seeing Norman and ask him how Mother was. Actually, I didn't get to try to ask him this year.
I don't think you did. That's the first.
Yeah, but then you go back into it through the regular Bloomhouse, and it just didn't feel like it flowed very well this year.
The R.I.P. photo ops, they didn't do, I thought when they took us off, it'd be like a mini maze like they did last year. But this was just a bunch of photo ops with Megan. They did some photo ops with
The Black Phone.
And The Purge. But The Purge was just like...
It was just like statues standing there, and you were
mannequins.
Like... Yeah, so The Purge wasn't very exciting.
No, I think we were one of like two people, like groups that ended up taking pictures over there. But because they had pictures like that before, it was almost the same thing. The one difference was Megan, so that was kind of a different photo op, and she was great. Mm-hmm. And I mean, the scare actor that's the grabber he's great, he's amazing, but it was done last year.
And actually, I liked last year's better, truthfully.
Yeah, with the van.
Yep, I thought it was just a lot cooler.
It wasn't special.
Yeah, it was. If you're not on the R.I.P. tour and you see that, I don't think you're missing a whole lot.
No. And usually those kind of things do set the R.I.P. tour up a little differently.
But they do have you walk through the set of...
Nope,
as well. So, I mean, that was kind of just like normal.
No, but the regular terror tram doesn't get to walk through that this year.
So, that's kind of cool. You get to do that. So, yeah. That's kind of the terror tram this year. It was one of the ones we did not go back and do this year twice, cut in the dark, because normally we'd like to do in the dark because it's so much better in the dark. We were just like, eh.
The scare actors, to give them credit, they were amazing. I thought the scare actors were really good, but unfortunately the theme has already been done. So that part felt a little tired. Yeah,
and there was nothing against the scare actors. It was just, I think that something new needs to happen. All right, again, that's our opinion. What did we do after that? Of course, we got back on the trolleys and drove across the back lot, I guess, through over to our next houses. And they told some cool stories, and it's kind of cool that, that's always fun to go through that area at night, especially when the sun's going down and it starts getting spooky and dark back there.
And I'll tell you what, our tour guide, Mila, was amazing, and she told ghost stories, and she was phenomenal.
That scream of hers.
I know.
Oh,
yeah, how she's not in a movie in her own after that scream is amazing. But if you do get our R.I.P. tour, Mila is amazing. And we partnered this year with another group, so they kind of kept us all together. So Andrew's with us, and he was amazing too.
Yeah, he was great. And that's one of the things to be aware of this year. In years past, sometimes you started with one group, then you had two at the Terror Tram stuff, and then you back to one. They actually we went through everything as the two groups, through every house together and everything together, which I agree, I think it did work better.
Yes.
So, okay, so what's our next house we did?
We did Universal Monstros Eternal Bloodlines. Now, this was kind of an all-female centric maze, and this is one of those John Murdy and his creative team's original stories, if you will. They took classic monsters and put their own twist.
Yeah, what's really cool about this is done in an old studio, which is Studio 12, that they'll show you as you walk up all the different films that have been filmed in there. It's really cool to see. And
Horror films.
Yeah. And yeah, it was a really neat thing that again we're going to be talking about, and the thing to be really aware with is to have really good walking shoes, because you're going to be walking a lot.
Okay, so when you go over to Universal Monstros Eternal Bloodline, this soundtrack was done by Slash, which we actually saw Slash this year.
But not at that house.
Okay, interesting, but it was kind of cool, like seeing him out at Halloween Horror Nights just walking by. So that was kind of cool.
Yeah. So as far as what this is based on is...
this is actually a battle between Van Helsing's daughter, Saskia Van Helsing, and the Bride of Frankenstein go against Dracula's daughter and her monstrous mavens. So this was that's how Universal Studios describes it. There was I think it was a decent house. It was... had some good special effects to this house.
I really wish I had that explanation before we went in a little bit better than what we had, because I didn't realize the Bride of Frankenstein was in it. I was like, what? How well did you know? I was trying to figure it out. But overall, it was a different house, and I actually kind of liked it.
I did too. But once again, I think the first time we went through it, we were a little disappointed, and the second time was so much better. So once again, you could have two different experiences in the same house.
Okay. Let's go to our next house, which was
Dead Exposure Death Valley.
This is definitely a full original.
So this was kind of fun. This was like an experimental lab gone wild with radioactive fluid, and you had zombies and radioactive animals. Their animatronics were really cool.
Yeah, actually the whole thing was really cool. This was one of the brighter houses, and it had a really good... It was fun. It was scary. Don't get me...
It was. We actually all enjoyed it the first and second time we went through. So that was saying a lot. And
we've actually asked cast members, because we went the day before, talking to the cast members that did the cast member preview, and they said they really liked this one too. It was really surprising for them.
Which is surprising for us, because a lot of times when we start asking those questions, we come up with different answers, but this one we totally agreed with.
Okay, let's go to our next house, which is a classic.
The Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Legacy of Leatherface. The film is celebrating its 50th year in the franchise, and all of those movies were represented throughout the house.
So that was more like your Halloween, traditional Halloween Horror Nights slasher films that they had. We all enjoyed it.
It still has that campy feel. It has that nostalgia, and actually the scare actors were really good, and overall just really enjoyed it. Actually, that was our teenage son's favorite house.
So let's go to our next house, which we remember from a couple years ago, and The Weeknd is back.
So this was The Weeknd, the Nightmare Trilogy. This was such a popular house the weekend before that they decided to do this a few years later and brought it back this year. There was a lot of strobe lighting, so if you have sensitivity to strobe lights, this could be a difficult house for you to get through.
A lot of weird lights throughout. Actually, I would say the strobe lights for a lot of places were pretty prevalent this year.
I think, but this specific house was really strong throughout. Quite frankly, I'll be honest, I didn't even hear Blinding Lights in there, and that's my favorite Weeknd song. So I was disappointed in that. I guess you don't get the same thing when they do a second house.
I think this was a situation of that the first one was so good that when we went through, we absolutely loved it. That this one maybe disappointed a little bit.
Yeah, it definitely fell short. We were just kind of like,
And we did not go through this twice. It wasn't a matter of the scare actors. We actually got to see a lot of the scare actors through it.
Scare actors are amazing. It's never on the scare actors, I'm going to say. because they always go above and beyond.
It was just more of, I think, the content.
Yeah, it just didn't flow as well as the last house. Didn't necessarily have the most popular tunes going through that you're used to hearing. It was okay.
But we did get a little tidbit of information on that one. You saw the babies that were in that house. Those were last year's Chuckies.
So that's a great recycle, reuse.
Yep. So that was kind of cool to know about that. After we did the Weeknd, we actually had time. I mean,
Which is shocking.
Yeah, because usually these first runs that you're running short on time, you don't get to do everything and go through. We were like a half hour ahead.
So they gave us a choice. We could either go over and ride Mario Kart, or we could go up to the Weeknd Nightmare Trilogy Bar. Most of us decided to go to the Weeknd Nightmare Trilogy Bar. And once again, just sit down, relax after the heat, have a drink, and kind of recharge.
Yeah. And there is a special area there that is RIP only, but it's also partially shared with the Universal Express Pass that's new this year. And so they had one section for RIP and the other section or that could have been anybody. A thing to be aware of with this is the RIP tour is supposed to get free sodas and waters. And we went through, our bartender actually charged us $5.50 for a can of soda.
And we did ask him about it, and he said no, this year they're charging. When we went back and asked our tour guide, Mila, about it, she's like, no, they shouldn't have charged. We're like, is it because they mixed? And she wasn't even sure at that point. Yeah. So that was kind of disappointing. The other thing on this end was disappointing is it was opening night, and it was like 9 o'clock at night, and they'd already ran out of one of their cocktails. Actually, two of their drinks.
Hayden got the last one of the second one.
So I ended up getting Is There Someone Else, which was a vodka-based drink, and it had an eyeball gummy. It was a really weird eyeball gummy.
Yeah, having your drink look back at you is kind of weird.
No, the actual texture of the gummy was weird.
Okay.
Yeah, it tasted funny. But it was still good. And then our son got the mocktail, which was out of time. And it was a Coca-Cola based drink with some fruit syrups and gummies in it. And he enjoyed it. But he got the last one. So I don't know if they ended up getting more later through the night or if that was it for the whole night.
And this is kind of nice because the other side of the Weeknd bar, I think they may have a little bit of different drink selection there. That place area was completely packed when I went over there just to take some videos, and I was going to try to see the menu. I couldn't see it. It was extremely busy.
And so the drink that I wanted to try was How Do I Make You Love Me? And that was a rum-based cocktail, and they're out of. Now, interestingly enough, I was like, oh, could they make Is There Somewhere Else with rum instead of vodka? And they said no, because these drinks are already pre-mixed.
Yeah, you looked in the back behind them, you could see the taps of everything. So, it's kind of thing that is disappointing, but it happened. So, yeah.
Just to be mindful if you want to go and try a beverage, maybe earlier in the night is a better time to try so that what you wanted to try was still there.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so after the Weeknd bar, again, of course, we had to go up. So, to escalators, more walking.
And then we went to A Quiet Place. That was a really interesting and different house.
Yeah, and this is one of those houses that I understood what was going on without seeing the movie.
This one wasn't as jumpy and scary for me, but I was entertained.
Yeah, it was kind of weird, and what I did like is it's where the old
The Walking Dead
was, and they've done several things. They haven't really changed that whole area a whole lot at times.
Right. The houses in the last 2 years, they took that spot. They kind of used that same layout and didn't change up. And you could be like, oh yeah, I recognize this part from the Walking Dead house that they had before. But this year was the first time I was like, oh, this completely feels fresh.
You didn't recognize it.
No.
And it was really well done. Obviously, some of the stats that we were going through, like, oh, we don't remember that from this year. If you hadn't been through different years. And this is where we're talking about like Chucky dolls. They will reuse pieces for the different areas. I found that I liked the house, but it was a little bit too bright because the jump out animatronics, which looked like we were talking about.
The alien death angels look like, to me, Stranger Things Demogorgon. So I kind of said that to our tour guide. She's like, yeah, I could see that too.
And they're brand new. These are not reused. These were built especially for this. Yeah, I really thought it was. I wish it was a little darker when those popped out at you, and I think that was one of the ones that was really a brighter house to go through.
I think you just saw it coming a little bit more.
Okay, so after that we went to, well, we kind of had to walk down that main area, and those main areas have a couple of cool things. This year it was kind of like a rock punk feel that we're out there.
The scare zones you're talking about.
Yeah. And also another scare zone I should mention is the murder of crows, which I thought that was really cool this year. So they had kind of a different one separating them. And but of course the scare zones are always fun to go through. But we walked past Chucky's bar. I told you I was going to tell you about that bars, which is new this year. We never got to go there. I kind of think it would be fun and went to
the Purge Dangerous Waters. This was interesting because I felt like it was the same show as last year, maybe a little bit more gore in the same storyline, but it's exactly the same storyline. The actors and stunt
the stunt actors.
Yeah, so sorry. The actors, the stuntmen, women, they're amazing, and it's a good show, and you definitely should see it. But if you're trying to maybe try to figure out your night, and you're like, well, I don't know if I'm gonna have time, and you saw it last year, this is kind of, you could skip it. But I definitely recommend seeing it, or I'd say we recommend. We definitely recommend seeing it at least once.
Yeah, see, if you haven't seen it, go see it. We were perfectly happy going to see it again.
Yes.
So that was awesome. And of course, after that, we had to make the trek over to a sequel this year.
So we went to Monstros, to the Nightmares of Latin America.
If you remember the one, was it last year?
Yeah, it was Monstros they did last year. So this is like part 2. And honestly, they do a phenomenal job. The storytelling, the scare actors really get into it. And I can't imagine like these folklores and scary stories that people grew up with in Latin America countries, and wow, those are really scary. They're freaky.
I mean, again, we talked about Grimm's fairy tales, and those are kind of, but these ones were pretty scary as well. So yeah, that whole maze was actually really cool. I've always liked that kind of that feel to it. It was just fun, and
definitely had a lot of scary things. We will say the first time we went through it, we enjoyed it better than the second time.
Yes.
I think we just, once again, hit the scare actors in a different way. But
and of course, they were probably taking breaks because of the heat. So
right, I think it's sometimes that those kind of things happened, especially last night. These houses were hot.
Yeah, and they're trying to turn over everybody, because you had replacements coming in and out. And so we might have hit that a couple of times when they were just switching out.
And then it was time to say goodbye to our R.I.P. tour group, which, once again, Mila was phenomenal, and she was so much fun. She brought a good energy to the evening. So we were sad to say goodnight.
Yeah, they dropped us off over at the VIP R.I.P. lounge, or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah.
And we got some desserts, because that's the time they start switching over for desserts only. Got a couple of drinks real quick, and guess what? We're on our way again to
Late Night with Chucky. This reminds me of Walt Disney World's Monsters, Inc. Laugh Floor.
It's just a lot more gory and a lot more violent.
Yeah, it's not necessarily cute and fuzzy. It is definitely not warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
But you could actually text in questions that Chucky would answer. But I'm not sure if they were all texted, because it seemed a little scripted at one or two of the questions. Not sure, but it was a lot of fun.
It was different, and like the hype, the comedian that they had, or the person that's supposed to be the hype up person at the beginning, right before you went in, telling all the stories and stuff.
The pre-show.
It was a lot of fun, and she was having a good time. People were having a good time. Basically, I think Chucky summed it up, and I'm gonna ruin it for you if you want to plug your ears for a second. That this was an ad for Chucky on Peacock.
And they admit it during the show, so it was a great place to go, relax, sit down, cool off.
For about 10 minutes.
Yeah, and it was a good show. Is it a must go to for the evening? Probably not.
Megan was a lot better, I think.
Yeah, I liked Megan better. But okay. I don't know if I want Chucky to hear that. He may, who knows, that could be scary. Sorry, Chucky.
So overall, there was a lot of things to do here. We kind of went through different bars, different things. Even if you're not on the R.I.P. tour, there's things that we could tell you right now that are helpful. After we were done, we were able to go through a lot of the different houses again. The lower lot, or the mid lot that we first started out in, was still a little busy, but it wasn't extremely busy at night. The lower lot at night, we're walking right in and up, and that's the advantage with RIP is that you have your own lanes to go right up there. But even people who were not RIP at the end of the night, they were pretty much walking on. And there is a reason for this, and we really need to cover this reason for it. Because you may see, if you're a fan of all these things, you may be watching a whole bunch of YouTube videos of this. And they're saying, longest line we saw all night was 1 hour. Well, there was a reason for that on the first night.
So last night was media night and celebrity night. We were not invited, sadly.
We had to pay our own way.
Anyways, because of those things, they actually kept the ticket sales at half capacity.
Yeah,
so this is not a normal opening night like we've been to before. Usually you're arm to arm, hard time getting through. It was
breezy.
Yeah.
We breezed through it, and what brought it up is we were about halfway through the tour. And I looked around and go, this is odd. This is never like this. I go, I don't feel it. I finally asked Mina, I go, what's going on? I go, this is kind of strange when we had a break. She goes, you know what? I go, is it the heat or something? She goes, no, what? We were just talking about that, but we just got confirmation that we're about half capacity, and they capped it for that reason. Because media, this is the first year they actually had media on opening night like this.
I actually liked it that way.
So it was a bonus for us.
Exactly. Less people is usually jam-packed, elbow to elbow. I was thinking it might have, but then again, opening night is very hardcore fan base. I was thinking the temperature might have kept some people home. I don't think that was the case.
Yeah. So overall, yes, RIP tour for us, extremely well worth it, and we would definitely recommend it. We got through all the mazes. We did have some favorites. I think the ones that stood out for us is our fifth favorite, which would have been Ghostbusters Frozen Empire.
And like I said, that surprised us. We didn't expect that to be so high up there.
Our fourth favorite, and some of these were really hard. I think our fourth favorite was
Monstros to the Nightmares of Latin America.
Yeah, I think we were discussing that. We really liked it, but I think we liked the last year's version just a tad bit better.
Our third one, which was shocking, was Insidious.
Yeah.
But I think it was very scary. It really did have that wow factor. But
I think if you didn't see the movie and everything else, you'd be kind of lost on it.
I think it was the grossest. I've never seen such a gross house at Halloween Horror Nights. I'll be honest, I'm not a fan of that.
That smell, puke smell, I didn't need that. Yeah.
No, it really, and I guess that's part of the last film we hadn't seen. But also for the fact that we feel that you have really got to see the films to understand it, also is a contributing factor.
And then our top two were battle.
Actually, we kept going back and forth. First of all, for number two, we picked for the nostalgia factor. Plus, it was really well done, and it's definitely had that classic Halloween Horror Nights feel to it. So that would be the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Legacy of Leatherface.
Yeah, it was fun. Seeing all the different iterations because we've seen a lot of the Chainsaw Massacres. It was just fun. It was scary. I mean, they really did a good job on everything. One thing I will say about a lot of the houses, and this was one of them too, is a lot of these houses are really, really dark. And there's times you didn't know where to turn because they were so dark.
Okay, so for us, the number one was Dead Exposure Death Valley. Loved the originality of the house. Yeah. The animatronics, the special effects, the glowing radiation canisters and glowing things kind of made that fun, and it was spooky with all these gory zombies, and
it was a great original house.
Yeah. So
the most disappointed one we had was The Weeknd.
And The Weeknd Nightmare Trilogy, I think there's just so much hype to it, and it really fell short for us. If you found this video helpful,
please like,
subscribe,
and follow along our Ohana. Yeah, like we said, overall we loved the RIP tour, and this year's houses and theming was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. There was
definitely a lot of originality, different things, and it was a really strong year for the houses.
Yeah, definitely. If you have time to go and really want to go, I would do it. RIP tour, of course, like we said, is the way to go if you really want to do it one night and you'd be able to do things multiple times. Of course, the Universal Express is also great if you're trying to get through them in one night, but you just can't get them multiple times in. Or you could always opt for the multi-day pass where you could go...
Frequent Fear Pass. I thought about that last night. It was only a $90 upcharge for the season. So I was like,
Yeah, and that you can maybe go to a maze or two when they get to those 2-hour lines, do a maze or two a night and work through your way that way through the season. I guess it's kind of up to you, but it's fun. It's a fun season to go to. The scare actors are absolutely amazing.
Always. They are always top notch. And their ability to act in the way they do and be scary or just theatrical, they're amazing.
And be on the lookout for celebrities and people, especially John Murdy. We ran into him at the end, and he's always very approachable and very nice to talk to.
So I think it's time to say goodbye and find your magic. Bye, everyone.